Right. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Those of you who are on Zoom, if you have any questions, just type them in the chat, and then at the end, when Andy is done, then we will ask those questions. And I'm gonna go ahead and let him get started. This is Andy Nash.
Hi, my name is Andy Nash, like she said. I'm actually went to school here in Gentry, so very familiar with this library. It was kind of my stomping grounds back for 4 years. So I don't know if I'm out there on the poster or anything, but there was but yeah, I had a good experience here. Back when I was here, they didn't offer this kind of stuff for different trades, so I was kind of clueless of what I wanted to do when I was y'all's age, and I think most of us are at y'all's age, so it's not uncommon. So I worked at Eureka Pizza for back in high school. After high school, I worked there. It wasn't a bad job, but it wasn't something I knew I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I didn't want to do that. So I left, moved to New Jersey, and kind of stumbled on this trade. I knew I was going to try to be a plumber or electrician. I wasn't sure, and became a electrician in 2005 is when I did that, and come back here in '07. The recession hit pretty hard, and it was kind of hard finding jobs, but I managed to bounce around and landed a job with a company in Fayetteville, and worked there for almost 10 years. And then in 2016 is when I opened up Nash Electric, and we're a smaller company here. Got a Silent Springs address, and so that's a little bit of background about me, as far as what I did. And let's see, sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. So so how to become an electrician? First is to get a job being an electrician. And there's companies out there like us, other companies out there, they're always hiring guys that are wanting to do the trade, and it's a career. It requires you to go to school. So most of the time, once you pick the trade, within a month or so, you usually figure out, hey, is this going to work for me? If this is something I'm going to do, if it is, it's a great career. Plumbing is the same thing. I've got friends that are plumbers, and so it's a similar, the way to become a plumber is very similar to the way to become an electrician. But to become an electrician, you get a job, get hired on, and then you get enrolled in school. We use NTI is the school we use. And we get you enrolled in school, and it's a 4-year program. And in those 4 years, it's one night a week, just 2 semesters. Just like you would normally go to school here, you'd have school there while you're working for somebody. So you have to have so many OJT hours, on the job training hours, and you also have to have so many school hours in order to get signed off by the state in order to take a test. Anyway, it's a 4-year program. It's one night a week. Usually it's 5 to 9 is what the electrical trade is 5 to 9, one night a week. And then once you're done with the schooling, you don't have to go to school anymore. As far as on a regular basis, they do make us take a continuing education course every 3 years. It's usually we get a new code book every 3 years, a new National Electric Code that we use. I wish I brought it so y'all can kind of see what the rules are. And all they want you to do is be familiar with how to look up in the code book if you have a problem. They want you to be able to find the problem, the answer in the code book. It's not that you have to memorize the whole code book, and it's an open book test when you go test. Once you're get done with school, they do offer a residential program where it's a little less time, but then you can only do residential. And in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with residential, but the money is in commercial work and industrial work. So there's 3 types of electricians in our area. There's in the trade anyway, there's going to be a residential, commercial, and industrial. Commercial and industrial are usually going to pay more. than what a residential electrician can make. Just because there's more opportunity, I guess. I don't know. You're working with bigger stuff. It's a little bit more dangerous, but it's really not. I don't feel like it's dangerous when you know what you're doing and you're getting trained up. I was scared to death of electricity when I first started. I grew up on a farm, so electric fences scared the fire out of me. And I've been shocked by electric fence before, and I could tell you, electric fence is a lot worse than being shocked by an outlet or something like that. It doesn't hurt near as bad, but I've been shocked on it quite a few times. It's just something that it's probably going to happen. But most of the time, we try to be safe. If it's the higher voltage, like 480 volts, about the highest voltage we'll work with on the commercial side of it. And anytime it's up in there, we try to take every safety precautions that we can to keep everybody safe. And once you're doing it, after you've been doing it for a while, you get used to and you get confident and you respect it, but it's there, right? It's you can't see electricity, it's invisible. So I always tell my guys, electricity is colorblind, meaning it don't matter what color wire that wire is. A lot of times green means ground, but that's not always the case. Some guys might be a Friday afternoon and they don't want to go to the supply house, and so they'll throw a ground wire in and make it a hot wire when they're not supposed to, but that's happened. And so I always tell people electricity is colorblind. After you get done with your schooling, the 4 years, you're eligible to go take a test. The test is an open book test. I'm not a good test taker. College wasn't really for me. I tried to be an architect. It just didn't work out. And so I'm glad I came upon this trade. And the tests aren't easy, but they're not terrible. I mean, I'm not a good test taker and I passed it. So I feel like if I can pass it, just about everybody here could probably pass the electrical test. It's a 3-hour test that they make you take. And then once you get that journeyman license, that license is worth gold almost, because you can almost go anywhere in this country and get a job, honestly. A lot of states reciprocate with our journeyman license. If they don't, you don't have to go to school again. They just make you send in the paperwork, and you might have to go take a test in a different state if you want to be licensed in a different state. I'm licensed here in Arkansas. I haven't tried to go get Oklahoma license because we got enough work here. I don't have to go over to Oklahoma and try to take some work over there. So I never had the need to go get a license over there. Once you become a journeyman, a lot of people stop at that point. With the next, there's one more step is become a master electrician. And a lot of times the master electrician, the only difference between what I have a license, my master license, and saying one of my guys that has a journeyman license is I can pull permits. That's about the only difference between my license and their license. And in order to own a business, you have to be able to pull the permits. And when I say permits, like if we did a new construction job, I'm going to go to the city, pull a permit, and then the inspector's going to show up throughout the job and inspect it and make sure we're doing it right to code. And if we're not, they'll tell us and we'll have to fix it or whatever. It's not that big of a deal, but a journeyman license does not allow you to do that. So that being said, that's about the only difference between a master's and a journeyman license. So a lot of times guys stop at that journeyman level because they don't plan on ever running their own business. There's guys that want to run their own business, and there's guys that don't want to run their own business and go after the master license. The master license doesn't reciprocate as many states, so it's not as valued, I guess, unless you're running your own business. And they make you pay, the state makes you pay for your journeyman license every year and a master license. And I think it's like $50 a year for having those licenses, which is not terrible. Let's see. So once you become let's see, and then every 3 years, they do a continuing education course where they want you to, well, like teachers and everything have, I'm sure the same thing with education, getting more certifications and stuff. Where every 3 years they come out with a new code book and they want us to be familiar with the changes in the code book. They don't write the whole code book new, but they want you to be familiar with the change. There's a few changes every 3 years that they implement. And so that's what the continuing education course, matter of fact, mine's coming up. I gotta have mine. It's an 8-hour course that I gotta go sit in for 8 hours on the 3rd, which is a Saturday, December 3rd. I'm gonna have to go sit for 8 hours and listen to an instructor kind of tell us about the changes in the code book and get us familiar with the changes. And so let's see. So once you're done with your journeyman, to get your master's, you don't have to go to school anymore. Once you become a journeyman, you're done with school. But you have to work for another 2 years for a contractor, electrical contractor, to become a master electrician. So it's a 6-year program to be a master and doing any kind of electrical work in Arkansas. There is a residential program that takes less time, but I wouldn't suggest going down that route. I would suggest getting your master, or if you want to be an electrician, to be able to do electrical and commercial and residential. That way you're very diverse. If you can do both, it brings value. And you get paid more if you're the value. So I tell my guys, I want them to be journeymen because their value goes up. They make more money. I get to, and I need a journeyman on a job. Any kind of job that we do, I need a journeyman on that job to run that job. And so by the state, I'm required to have at least one journeyman. And then I can have 2 apprentices underneath them. It's a lot of on-the-job training, the schooling. You learn a little bit in school as far as how to use your code book and stuff. But for me, I learned 90% of the stuff I learned was from working out in the field. And so if you like working with your hands, then pick a trade. This is the best route. And there's always going to be a need for electricians, plumbers, HVAC, any of those trades. There's always going to be a need for us. So, and actually, the pay scale is almost tripled since I was a journeyman, and that's only been like 6 years ago. So, it's gone up significantly because there's a lot less of us, and the demand is a lot more. And so, and it's going to continue doing that, I think. So, it's a good paying career. You can make a great living doing it. There's always opportunity if you ever want to own your own business. There's that opportunity too. That being said, let's see, to own your own business, it's not always easy. We joke about it. Being a business owner, you just kind of get to. The only thing that I get to choose really is about what 12-hour part of the day I want to work. It's long days for me. Now, when I was a journeyman, it wasn't. I'd show up, work my 8 hours, maybe 9 hours. As long as I was staying caught up on the job, and that was it. I'd go home. It was very stressful as long as you got your job done. When you kept up with everybody, then you were fine. But as a business owner, I'm responsible for, we got about 10 jobs we're running right now. We do Family Dollars, Popeye's Chickens. We do quite a few of those restaurants. We did the pizza oven over in Silent this week next to Lowe's. Nash Electric did that job. So my responsibility is to make sure that they meet their deadlines on all those jobs with my guys. We have about 9 guys working for us. And so I make sure that they're doing their jobs right and they're staying on task, which I try to hire good guys that I don't have to, we call babysit. We don't have to babysit. They just show up and do their jobs right. And I don't have to worry about it. And I got a great crew that I can trust and know that they're going to do their job. And so usually when I'm getting phone calls from the job superintendent, I know we're getting behind, but we don't really, I don't hardly ever get those calls, so my guys stay caught up, and so, the things that if you want to be a business owner, you gotta pick a name, and that's not always easy. I picked Nash Electric, but it wasn't an easy decision. I was up in the air. Do I want to be, Quality Electric or, something like that, a generic name? But I chose Nash Electric. That's my last name, and there's a lot of companies around here that just use their last name. But there's other companies that don't use their last name. And the reason it was a hard decision, because if I ever wanted to sell Nash Electric to whatever, a generic name would be easier to sell, in my opinion, like, you know, Quality Electric or 5-Star Electric or something like that would be to me. But so that's why it was a little bit. And then you got to get a state ID from the state of Arkansas, and you have to have some business. You have to have insurance. You have to have a master license. And some of the responsibilities that I have is scheduling. I wear many hats. The smaller you are, the more responsibility you have. The bigger you get, the you can afford to hire people to take on some of this responsibility. But so yeah, I started the trade in 05, and 2016 is when I started my business, and I worked by myself for 6 months. I worked just by myself, just doing work. I worked in a plant over in Fayetteville and was there for like 3 months straight working there. And then a guy that was y'all's age at the time, he graduated high school from Lincoln and hollered at me and was like, "Hey, are you interested in hiring him?" I interviewed him. He acted like he was a good guy. He looked like he was going to be a hard worker. I brought him on. He's still with me today. He's the one that wired this job right here that I'm going to show you guys the blueprints of. But yeah, he's a success story. He started out green, didn't have a clue on anything electrical, but he had a will and a want to be good at it. And so, and I saw that, and so, I guess when we're looking for guys to hire, we're looking for somebody that wants to work. It's not back-breaking work that we do. There's days that it's harder than others, but that's why I chose the trade to be an electrician, because we work more with our brains than we do manual labor. And we're pulling wires and bending conduits, and every once in a while we'll have to dig a trench or something. But a lot of times we have equipment to dig trenches and stuff like that. So you do work outside some, so you're going to have to work in the elements some. Usually when it's raining or something like that, or snow on the ground. Well, if it's snow on the ground, the roads are shut down. We really don't work. But if it's raining, we always have work we can do on the inside. So that's what's nice about what we do. We can work outside, inside. We don't do the same thing every day. It's like always something different, and that was appealing to me. Because I just don't get bored. I get bored pretty quick with just sitting in front of an office. That's probably the worst part of being a business owner for me, is just sitting in front of my computer, trying to send out emails or work up pricing and stuff. I hate that part. I'd rather put the tool belts on and go run a job or something like that, because I don't have to think about it too much. Just out there having a good time. But that's why I liked about being an electrician, because we do something different all the time. It's not the same day in, day out routine. One day we might be putting in a yard line or a service to a building, working outside. The next day we might be inside running pipe or bending pipe up, or running some wire in the pipe or whatever. There's always something different. Most of our work is up high. And so being scared of heights can be an issue, but Dylan, the guy that works for me that started he was scared to death of heights. On a 4-foot ladder, he'd step up 2 steps, and that was about as far as he could go. But over time, after he's done it for a while, I wouldn't say I'm still kind of scared of heights, but you just get used to it. And we work off ladders, we work off scissor lifts, we work off boom lifts. Those are some of the stuff we use. We're doing a 200 by 100 warehouse over in Fayetteville right now. That's about 25 feet up in the air, so, but we'll have a scissor lift for that. We'll drive around and working and putting in conduits and stuff like that. Let's see, that's about all I had as far as that. Is there any questions? I guess there's any questions.
We
y'all
have some on Zoom, but
Okay,
do y'all have any questions right now?
comments?
How physically fit you have to be,
You really don't have to be physically, I mean, it's not a demanding physical labor job. There's days that I'm gonna work out for sure. You're gonna be climbing up and down the ladder a lot. But it's not like, it doesn't require you to be fit or whatever. I mean, it's not, there's a lot of other jobs out there that require a lot more physical. With us, it's, bending a pipe or running wires. It's not as, or hanging a light fixture or something like that. It's not as physical. It's not that physical. So you don't have to be in super good shape. And so that's why, we're in the trades, that if you're using your back all the time, you're usually not making as much money. If you're using your brain, you're gonna make more money with your brain than you are with your back. And that's why I like picking a trade like electrician, because we get to use our brain a lot, troubleshoot. And then there's another, being a service tech. That was probably one of my favorite sides of being an electrician, is being a service tech. And being a service tech is I get to go deal with people. And so coming from the fast food industry, being at Eureka Pizza, Sonic, I worked at Sonic too. I like dealing with people. I like talking to people. I like visiting with people. So the service side, I liked it. I like to be the hero, show up, find the problem, fix the problem, and get paid to do that, and then visit with the customer and stuff like that. So the service side is probably one of my favorite sides of being an electrician, is just, and that's really just being able to deal with people and like I said, fix their problems or whatever they have.
So would you say that's your favorite part of the job?
Yeah, absolutely. Favorite part, probably being a service tech, and then my second probably favorite part of being an electrician is running conduit. It's like putting together a puzzle. You're bending it, you're slapping it up in the air. When I say conduit, we usually run like 3/4 EMT, which is about that big around. That's a very common size. And we have hand benders that we can bend it up. It's a skill, something that you should learn overnight. But once you get that skill, it's like riding a bicycle. You'll never forget it. And if you're good at it, guys are going to pay you good money for it. There's a need for it, and if you're fast at it, I got a guy that could slap up some conduit pretty quick, and there's guys that are not as good at it, but it takes time. It's not something that I remember when I first started bending conduit. So I started out in the residential side of it. I did remodels up in New Jersey. We worked on a bunch of old houses. And I liked it. I learned it. I learned the residential was pretty quick for me. I learned how to wire up a house within 6 months. I had a work truck where the guy I worked for was having me go up and wire these expensive houses up in New Jersey. I enjoyed that part of it, but it got old. To me, it got pretty old pretty quick, as far as, because you're just drilling holes and you're running what we call Romex. And we call them Romex junkies, because that's all you do is drill holes and run Romex. And then when I moved here, when I got on with a company over in Fayetteville, they did more commercial work, and that's where I learned how to do the commercial work. And if I was to pick, I'd pick commercial work all the time. It's easier. To me, it's easier. You don't have to be as fast. Residential, especially around here, you have to really hustle. And the reason is because there's a lot more residential electricians than there are commercial electricians. So there's a lot more people bidding on residential jobs. And so the margin, the profit margins are a lot less. And so in order to make money at being a residential, like these houses that they build, 100 of them, they're wiring those up in 2 days, on the rough end, and then spending 2 days on a trim out. And if they're not doing that, they're probably making good money. In order to do that, you really gotta hustle. And so we found our niche in commercial work, doing smaller, not the big jobs, but our average job is probably around $150,000 job is our average job that we do. And whereas residential, you're looking on a spec house, you're probably at, a $10,000 or $15,000 job or even less. And so there's more money. Commercial electricians, they're almost two different people. And if you can do both, that's great. But most of the time, your commercial electricians are a little bit slower, but they're having to think more. It's a little bit more complicated, but like I said, you get paid for your brain instead of your back. And so to me, it's not as hard as the work, even though you install bigger gear and stuff like that, but you have help, you have machines that help you install that stuff. So
So what is your least favorite part of your job then?
my least favorite is sitting in front of the computer, looking at emails, and that's as far as being the honor. The journeymans don't have to do that. When I was a journeyman, when I wasn't running my business, probably my least favorite part is probably working out in the cold. Some days you gotta work out in the cold, and then in the heat. Some days it's gonna be hot. And so those were probably not the greatest, but I was always looked at it as, well, I'd rather be out here working than in an office working. So it was a good trade-off for me. And so as far as actually doing the work, wiring up a house is probably my least favorite thing to do. So yeah.
Without giving your personal salary, can you please outline entry-level pay and how pay progresses as you move through the various levels?
So right now, an apprentice with no experience starts out between $12 and $15 an hour around here. If you're a hard worker and you show up and you're on time, and you show incentive, you can always find the guys that want to do it, that want to make it a career. Because the guys that want to make it a career are going to invest in their tools. They're going to buy tools. They're going to be asking you questions. Hey, how does this work? Dylan was a prime example. He would YouTube. He'd go home and just YouTube stuff. He had questions, and he'd answer those questions by YouTube a lot. And so, and then when he was working with me, I was always trying to train him. I want my guys to be the best there is. I want them to be successful. If they're successful, I'm successful. And that's how I look at it. And so I'm only as good as my weakest guy. And so I'm all about trying to get my guys trained and get where they can make good money, whether it's for me or whether they decide to move on or whatever. I always want to increase their knowledge, which increases their value. If they know how to do certain things, that increases their value. So I've had good luck at retaining my guys. I've had companies that try to come take my guys from me, and offer them more money than I can pay them. Since I'm a smaller company, I can't offer what some of these bigger companies offer. But with me, it's a family-owned business. We treat, after you work with us for a while, you become a family almost. And so I found with the bigger companies, not all of them, but a lot of them will train you and get you good at one specific thing, and that's what you do all the time. The smaller companies, they don't have that option. They're going to have to train you and get you good at everything. And that's what we try to do. I've hired guys that come from these big companies, and they come over and they only know how to do certain things and they're really good at it because they do it every day. They've been doing it for 20 years or whatever. They're really good, but they don't know how to troubleshoot something. If something's not working right, they don't know how to work on it. They're clueless. And so, my guys that work for me, I want them to know how to do everything. I want their value to be very good, you know. I want them to know how to troubleshoot stuff that's not working, or learn how to wire a house, for instance, or wire a Popeye's chicken or a commercial building or something like that. They're more diverse in what they could do. Another thing that a lot of people don't mention is once you start learning how to be an electrician and you start understanding, you're gonna be getting calls from the woodworks. Hey, can you come help me on this? And there's opportunity for you to make more money. And we call it side work. Okay. I did it when I didn't run my business. I did a lot of side work. I made more money working on the side than I worked for my boss, but it wasn't guaranteed. It wasn't always there. So, there's guys that like that. There's guys that are like, man, I just want to work my 40-hour weeks and be done with it. I always wanted extra money. And so, and I got some guys that's all they want to work is their 40-hour weeks and they're done. They want to go home and call it good. Then I got guys that want to work extra and I don't care. You know, I was in their shoes at one point too. So some companies frown upon it. I don't. I always tell my guys, I want y'all eating steaks too. So if you can go work side work and make some extra money, and you can go do it, you know, make a, you know, most of these guys are making $40 an hour or $50 an hour on the side doing side work. And I'm not paying them that kind of money. So, and it's, you know, it's not taxed or whatever too on the side, but it's not guaranteed, you know, it's not something they get to do. So they can't rely on it full time. So back to that question, 15 an hour, 12 to 15 an hour is a starting wage. Typically, if you show up and you can show that you're doing a good job and you're wanting to learn, I usually give a guy bump them up right away if they're showing me that they're wanting to do it. Once you become a journeyman, and usually it's about $1 an hour raise every year. Some if you're just being outstanding and doing what you're supposed to, and you're really impressing your boss or whatever, some guys will pay you more, $2 or $3 an hour. You know, if you're good, your boss is not going to want to lose you. Okay, there is a point where they can't afford to pay you, and some other company can, and that's where you get to make that decision whether you want to be where you're at or you want to move on. It's not always greener on the other side. I can contest to that. And that's where so that being said, when you become a journeyman, usually you're about $17 or $18 an hour after you've done your 4 years of school. So once you get that journeyman license, you should be making between $18 and $22 an hour. Starting at, and that's entry level journeyman. So that's a journeyman that can run a job, that you can handle a small job. And after you've done it for 3 or 4 years, you should caught on how things need to work. And you should be able to run some smaller jobs. A good boss to me is gonna know what you're capable of and never put you in a environment that you're gonna fail in, you know. And so that's what I've done with my guys that's got journeymans. I've worked beside them. I know what they're capable of. They might look at a plan like this and get a little overwhelmed, but if you break it down to little sections of it, it's really not that complicated after you've done it for a little bit. And then I got a guy paid $32 an hour too. So, and he's a service tech. To me, service techs are the hardest ones to find. If you know, not all companies do service work, but a service tech, you have to have a lot of trust in them because they're in people's houses, or in commercial businesses. You have to trust them. And they're also the face of your company. When they're in somebody's house, you want them to be you want them to look presentable. You want them to be, and not everybody is a service tech, so personality has a lot to do with if you're gonna make a service tech, in my opinion, I have a guy that's very knowledgeable, very good, knows how to troubleshoot stuff, he can wire up anything. But people get on his nerves, and so he's kind of short with people. I don't want him doing my service work because of that. And so personality has a lot to do with being a service tech. And then the nice thing about a service tech is you build relationships with these customers, and that increases your value. So when you get a job offer, like I hired a guy that worked for a different company, he wasn't happy and he came over to work for me. I hired him and he brought on, and he didn't like try to steal these customers, but they know him, they know Rob. And so when he came to work for me, well, he brought those customers with him, and it wasn't like intentionally, they just had his number. And they knew what he was about. They weren't using that other company because of him. And so when he started working for me, he brought those customers over to me. So that increases your value. And that's why I like being a service tech, is because you make those relationships out there. We do, on our service side, we do stuff for McCarty Daniels, all their dealerships around here, Fayetteville Auto Park. We do a lot of Chick-fil-A service work, a lot of residential service work. People just randomly, houses, whether they want to add some lights or change out switches or make their home a smart home. There's technology out there, like I can turn on lights in my house with my phone right now, which is pretty cool. I can see what lights are turned on. There's technology out there. When I drive up to my house, certain lights turn on. It's pretty cool. And electricals always are evolving. And so to me, that's another reason I love it, is you never are going to know everything about electric. There's so much out there. There's so many different aspects of it, like residential, commercial, industrial. Like industrial, I'm clueless on a lot of industrial work. That's not something that I learned. I wish I did, but I didn't learn. And, you almost have to make that a career move, to be an industrial. Working in plants, doing control work. Those guys make good money too. That's probably your top paid electricians, is that. But the trade-off to that is, working in plants, you're going to work a lot of weekends, because when the plant shut down to get worked on, that's weekends. And so if you're fine giving up your weekends, then I say go for it. That's where the most money is to be made. Either that or service tech is where but then there's commercial electricians where they usually work Monday through Friday. We don't hardly ever work weekends, And so I will work a Sunday from time to time when we get behind, but I don't ever ask my guys to work unless I'm working too. So it's kind of, they know when I'm working, they know we're behind, we need help. So was that answer that question?
Yeah, it does. Okay, so you mentioned that if you have someone come work for you, that you will pay for their training. And
yeah, so what we offer at Nash Electric is, if you're entry level, no experience, we offer to hire. And so it's $375 a semester to go to the school that the state requires you to go to school. It's $375 a semester. So there's other companies, not all companies, but what we do for our guys is they pay for their first semester. And the reason they pay for their first semester is because I want them to be committed. I've tried to pay for it before they even, started school. But I found that a lot of times people just don't go to school. And so I paid $375 to send this guy to school, and he's not going to school. And so I found if I make them pay for it and put a little bit of money up front and pay the first semester, and then the schooling is not like school that you have here. It's almost a participation score. Like you show up, they're gonna talk about it, but you're not getting a grade from your test. It's not something that they're gonna be testing and giving you grades on. So it's mostly they want you to show up and just listen. And that's what they grade you on. And so if my guys make a 92% or higher, then I start paying for their school. And then once they get their journeymans, I pay them for that first semester that they paid for it. So in reality, I pay for it all if they do it right. If they don't make that attendance 92 or higher, which is like they can miss like 1 or 2 days. If they don't, and then the thing is, if you miss, they'll let you make that class up if you want. If you don't miss too many, they'll let you make that up. So if you make a 92 or lower, then I want you to start paying for it. But if you go to school and do what you're supposed to, I offer to pay for your schooling, which is like I said, it's $375 a semester is what it is right now.
So do you have any stipulations when they graduate from school that they have to like stay with your business for so long, or?
No, but that's the nice thing. There's no contracts or anything like that. Once you get done with your school, I mean, I'm gonna, if you're good at what you're doing, I'm gonna want to try to keep you. And so that's where I feel like where my niche is, where I've got guys, like I said, I've had guys get offered more money, but they know me on a personal level. They know if they get in a bind, and then not, you don't get to this like starting out. I'm not going to treat like one of you guys like a guy that's been with me for 5 years. You know, a guy that's been with me for 5 years, if he has a situation come up and he's needing help on something or whatever, I'm going to be there for him. I want to make sure he's taken care of. The guys that are starting out, once they build that relationship with me, and I know they're in it to win it, then I'm going to look at them as a family too, and want to make sure they're going to be taken care of. We all had COVID. My guys, all of them got COVID throughout the time. I got it twice. It's just part of life right now, right? So the guys that's been with me for a long time, and I wanted to take care of them, I paid them their 40-hour weeks. When they had COVID, they couldn't work. But I made sure they got their paycheck. Did I have to do that? No. But did I wanted to do that because they've taken care of us. And so I made sure that they were taken care of. And so that's what you get with smaller companies. You're not just a number. I just hired a guy from a big outfit, and his complaint, the reason he wanted to come work for me, because he felt like he was just a number over there. You know, they have certain pay scales, whether you're good or not. This is how much this guy makes for how many years experience you have. And not everybody's on that same, in my opinion, not everybody's on that. The way I look at it, your value is how hard of a worker you are in your knowledge. It's not about how many years you have working. If you can do it, you know, there's guys that are better that had 5 years experience than a guy that has 20 years experience, you know? And so for smaller companies, I look at their value rather than their how long they've worked, how long they've done it. And so that's the reason he wanted to come work for me, is he felt like he was just a number there. And so yeah.
Do any of you guys have questions?
I can show y'all a little bit about my tools. You got any more questions?
Online, I think you've answered them all.
Okay.
Well, I have some more questions, but I think they've already been answered. I guess the last thing that I'll ask, and then maybe we can turn this off and you can show that.
Okay.
Can you talk about things as a teenager you would have not thought was important, but as an adult you realize is a necessity?
So when I was y'all's age, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew college wasn't for me. I tried it, and I enjoyed high school. I had a good time in high school. But the only reason I had a great time in high school is because of my friends. I enjoyed my friends. I had some great teachers, don't get me wrong. Miss Byers, my chemistry teacher here was phenomenal. She's an awesome teacher. And Miss P, she was an awesome art teacher. Miss Mac was an awesome English teacher. All these guys, all these teachers were awesome. But schooling wasn't for me. I didn't necessarily struggle in school, but when I got to college, I did. And so I wish I was presented with an opportunity as far as working in a trade. The trade, you don't have college debt. So my wife, she's a school teacher, and when she graduated, she has. And I'm not knocking on school. They're school teachers. They're awesome. Don't get me wrong on that. But there's any kind of college degree you have, you're going to have a lot of school debt to pay off. And there's a lot of people that don't even use their degree. They go out and get their degree, and then they find something else. They don't like doing what they're doing, and so, but it's too late. They already got that. They already got that debt, and so with being an electrician or being in a plumbing field, you don't have that debt, and you start making money right away. Whereas when you're going to college, you're not. It's just struggle bus. This trade is designed for guys like y'all to start out young, because when you're 30, 35 and you have a family, making $15 an hour is not going to cut it, so it's designed to start out at y'all's age. And time you get to where you're starting to have a family, you're going to be making a good salary or a good hourly wage. Another thing, I bonus my guys. So my guys get bonus checks when they do good on the job, and we're profitable. I take the profit, look at it, and then I give them. Sometimes it could be $5,000. Sometimes it could be $1,000. Just depends on what size of a job it is. But they get a bonus, and then my apprentices, if they're doing good, they get a bonus too. It's not as much as the journeyman level because they have more responsibility, but they're part of that team too. So I make sure I bonus them out too.
All right, well, thank you for meeting with us today.
Yeah,
I'll go ahead and I guess end the Zoom, and then the ones who are in the room with us, we can look at this.
So these tools right here are the